Welcome back, legends. I hope you're all fantastic. It is time for Q&A number 201, but the very first installment of Monday Q&A. I wanted to make a change to the day that I put my Q&A videos on for a few reasons. The main one being that basically every Friday afternoon now I have a gig, and the last 6-9 months, probably longer, I felt that I've kind of been rushing to get my Q&A videos out. I like to leave filming them to the day that they actually go up, which means that sort of everybody gets a chance to have their question answered rather than me, putting up the Q&A video on a Friday and then filming the response on a Monday and then leaving it for another 3 or 4 days, where it seems like a lot of people kind of like to take their time working their way through the Q&A video or coming up with a question to ask me. So simply just gives me that little bit of extra time in my schedule. Doing it on a Monday is easier. And I would love to know your thoughts about how you like the change once we get done with the questions. As always, if you like what I'm doing here on the channel, you can check the video description. There's a variety of different ways to support what I'm doing here on the channel. You can join my Discord server, you can get some free IRs, or listen to my music. For now, let's get into this week's questions. For the very first Monday Q&A, my advice for somebody who wants to get their feet wet, dipping into the wonderful world of digital modeling, quite a few factors in place here. I would say if you're interested in any of the main popular modelers, I've got videos on them on my channel that you can check out. My personal choice would be go all in and get an Axe-FX FM3 or FM9. That's what I use here in the studio. That's what I use live. That's my personal preference. I just love that unit. It is probably one of my favorite pieces of gear ever made. Having said that, I've got an HX Stomp. I've got a Quad Cortex. I've used a Kemper before. I've used a whole bunch of products from companies like Mua and Nuex. You can get pretty fantastic tones out of just about everything. The feature set varies widely between all of them. The way they kind of work and the overall workflow and what you can do with them varies widely as well. I would say the big change, if you're somebody coming from playing a guitar amplifier through a guitar speaker cabinet, is that generally what you use with a modeler is a full range speaker or some monitors so that you can take advantage of the built-in cabinet modeling. What you're going to be hearing in that case is a recreation of an amplifier run through a cabinet captured by a microphone. Most of the time, a close mic'd cabinet on there. So it's going to sound a lot like a recording. It's going to sound nothing like a cabinet in a room. They are two fundamentally different experiences. Once you kind of wrap your head around that and adjust to it, though, I think you'll get the difference in there, and it does make recording a whole lot easier. For me, it streamlines playing live because it means I don't have to take a cabinet and then mic it up and run it through the PA anyway, and I play on in-ears live. So there's that. I would say that you also kind of get what you pay for when it comes to quality and support. Units like the Fractal and Helix in particular get regular updates that add a lot of new features. Some of the cheapest stuff just simply never gets updates. They might put stuff out with a simple bug fix or something like that. It seems like those companies are more interested in just churning out new hardware revisions, whereas stuff like, say, the Axe-FX 3, which came out in 2018, 2019, something like that, it's gone through so many firmware revisions. Basically everything in it has been updated and improved in some way, and the actual return on your initial investment there is pretty awesome. So just depends what your budget is and what features you want out of it. Some people want access to everything. Some people want a simple box with some knobs that they can connect an XLR out to and kind of replace their amp. There is pretty much a solution for everybody out there. It comes down to what you want and your personal taste. Can I put up some more live videos? Definitely. A quick little plug, Ragdoll are going to be in Melbourne at the start of March. We've got 2 shows, one at the Northcote Social Club and one at Whole Lotta Love. The Northcote gig is Saturday the 4th of March. Whole Lotta Love is a more chilled out acoustic thing. It's a free show as well on the Sunday. The 5th of March, I'll also be at the Melbourne Guitar Show as well. And I will be taking plenty of video and I'll post it up. If you haven't seen it already, Ragdoll actually has a couple of live albums already. One called Live at Dog Swamp, one called Live at Cherry Bar. The Cherry Bar one has a bunch of footage in there as well. Check them out on the channel if you're interested in that kind of thing. Was I ever into model planes as a kid? I was not. I was 100% a Lego kid, whether it was building a kit exactly the way it's described in the instruction model, or it was just tipping out all my Lego on the floor and having some fun and trying to be creative. 100% a Lego kid. I never really got into the model planes or trains. My dad is a massive model trains person, though. That was his Lego when he was a kid. But for me, Lego was just the best. You know, you could have pirates one day, you could have space police the next day. You could just come up with something from your own imagination if you wanted to, or just kind of make weird abstract art out of the bricks. And one of my favorite things online is watching those kind of Lego builds of kits I was either too old to ever get, so they kind of came out a few years before me, or I was too old to sort of really be into Lego, and I go and revisit them and it's like, wow, they put out some great stuff when I was getting more interested in skateboarding and guitar. So not so much into the model planes, but Lego. If there's any Lego fans in the house, let me know in the comments. Has there ever been a situation where I've been able to get a tone using just the EQ on my amp that I couldn't get by switching pickups? All the time. I find both approaches work pretty well in the studio. Sometimes I'll be doing an overdub. It's like, you know what? I'm going to do this on the neck pickup with the tone control rolled all the way down just for something different. And other times you just kind of reach for the amp, or in my case, most of the time the Axe effects, and roll the treble down or roll the bass up or something like that. Essentially, what your pickups are doing is changing your pre-gain EQ. And some amplifiers, like a Boogie Mark series, for example, have their bass, middle, and treble controls pre-gain. So you can probably kind of get a similar thing going on. Most amplifiers have their tone stack, the bass, middle, and treble after the main distortion stage. So to me, that's like sculpting the distorted sound versus trimming it. I always use the analogy of, say, a steak or a brisket. If you're into barbecue, you can trim the fat and then cook it. That's different to cooking it in all the fat and then trimming it up later. Slightly different results. One is not better than the other. It's personal preference at the end of the day. And with guitar, it all depends on what works best in the song. Any plans to revive the 5 Killer Riffs series? I was planning to do a lot more of those last year. And, last year just kind of happened. And now it's this year. I'm definitely going to do a few more of my favorite bands. I've actually been recycling some of the clips from the 5 Killer Riffs series as shorts, and people seem to be enjoying those. So I think if I do a 5 Killer Riffs video, I'll also be doing 5 separate shorts about it. So there's a bunch of bands who I've been sort of re-listening to over the holiday break, and I'm like, oh my God, they have so many amazing riffs. So keep your eyes peeled for those. They are a lot more work than a typical like pedal video or Axe Effects tutorials. So I kind of have to spend a lot of time programming drums and bass and things like that just to make them really work. They're really, really fun from my perspective, because it's kind of like, how do I get the sound of those old records? But like I said, they are pretty time consuming, but I know people really, really like them, and I love making them. So keep your eyes peeled over the next couple of months. Have I ever checked out the official soundtrack for the movie The Wraith? I had not. I'd never seen the movie. I'd not checked out the soundtrack. I was listening to it over the weekend, and it hit me right in the nostalgic feels. When did that come out? 86, 87 or something like that. So many good songs on there. It's from that era of, the ultimate sort of 80s soundtrack where you'll have a song with some really great synthesizer sounds from that era. I think there's a track by Lion on there. So Doug Aldrich, one of my favorite players ever, absolutely ripping it up. Would recommend. Have I ever done any gigs with Taj Farrant from Australia, young guitar prodigy who you may have seen like on Ellen and Pete Thorne and stuff like that? I think people assume that everyone in Australia knows everybody else in Australia. And look, I live in Perth. Everyone in Perth pretty much knows everybody else in Perth, but it's not necessarily the case in Australia. So no, I haven't, never had anything to do with them, but another amazing guitar prodigy from Perth. You may have seen Jaden Tatsikore. We've actually had his band, and they're all like, 15 and under or something ridiculous like that, open up for us at a show. And they were amazing. They all play like seasoned pros, and Jaden is just one of those players that just has it. And it's been amazing seeing them go from, someone you could barely see behind your guitar to someone you can see behind the guitar and their fingers are absolutely flying. Jaden put up a clip playing the solo for Rust, and they play it better than I do. It was incredible. They've just got that thing, and I cannot wait to see what Jaden does with the rest of their career. Furthermore, some of the loveliest people I've ever met, their entire family are just great people. They're not like pushy stage parents or anything like that. It just kind of seems like he's a kid who absolutely lives and breathes music and guitar. And, I'm all for that. So Jaden, if you're watching that, shout out and keep up the good work. Do I have any early recordings that I'd be willing to share with everybody? I do, not on my main hard drive. I did a video called like 10,000 Days of Guitar or something like that, where I uploaded a few clips of me as a kid playing, and also I think like a high school concert playing an original instrumental song. So I'm going to try to dig those up over the week and maybe share them and, you know, do a video about them if people are interested in that. I'll put a little clip from that other video right at the end of this video for you to check out. When am I coming back to the USA? As soon as possible. I've had a lot of questions about this from people. Ragdoll have done quite a bit of touring in the States in the past. It's been a few years since we've been able to come over, and I want to do everything in my power to get us over there to play some more shows, because it is just such an amazing, diverse, exciting, full-on, extreme, welcoming place. You know, all these things apply to the USA. I feel like people who live outside of the USA kind of only hear about the worst aspects of it. But when you go there, well, in my experience anyway, pretty much everyone I've met who comes to our shows are amazing, kind, interesting people. So maybe I'm just really, really lucky. I mean, my wife is American, so I definitely feel very, very lucky. It's such a great place to play music, and there's definitely that aspect for me of like pilgrimage. All my sort of favorite music has its roots in the United States and the United Kingdom as well, but you know, all of that stuff has its roots in the United States anyway. So yeah, it's such a great place to play. I can't wait to come back. Last question for this week: have I ever had stage fright, and if so, how do I deal with it? I feel like I've been pretty fortunate where when I got into gigging, I started off by gigging with people who were pretty experienced, and they were able to say, hey, you just do your thing. Don't worry too much about what everybody else is doing. Focus on what you do well, and we'll take care of the rest. And I think because of that, I've never really got super nervous before going on for shows. I definitely get nerves and I get excited, but for me, probably my experience playing sport as a kid, playing cricket, playing footy, AFL football, that is, of course, you know, you kind of get nervous doing that, but then it's like over the white line and getting white line fever and just throwing yourself into it and getting into a flow. So I think nerves are a good thing. If you're not feeling nerves, maybe you're not adequately prepared, but I've never had the sort of crippling anxiety that goes along with playing live for some people. And I have known some people who, you know, it really, really is a thing. An hour, half an hour before they go on stage, they really get worked up. In that case, I don't know if I have any useful advice. I'm just a person on YouTube. I'm not a psychologist or a therapist. It does feel like that sometimes, but the main thing for me is focusing on what I can control, which is preparation, which is just going out and trying to leave everything on stage and really be in the moment. And if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong regardless of whether I'm worried about it or not. So that's kind of my mindset to playing live. I just do my best to really look forward to it and getting that opportunity to play in front of people, which I know will not last forever. I'm not going to be able to do that my entire life. So try to make the most of it and look at it through a very kind of positive, affirming mindset, if that makes sense. That's it for this week. Put your questions for next week in the comments section below, and we'll be on to episode 2 of Monday Q&A and the 202nd Q&A overall. Again, thank you all so much for your support. Thank you to everybody who submitted a question for this week, and I'll see you next Monday. Cheers.